Constitution protects the right to freedom of speech, thought and political association. These rights come with responsibilities. It's with this in mind that Trade Union Federation, Cosatu, has presented its submission on the Prevention of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill to Parliament. Cosatu says it's critical to protect ordinary citizens from hate speech. It's urging Parliament to pass the bill. For more on this, I'm joined by Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks. Matthew, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. I first have to get your comment and reaction to Stellenbosch University tonight announcing that it's actually probing 2 incidents of racism, alleged racism, I should say, technically, at the university.
Yes, no, thank you, and thanks for having us. Look, I think the 2 incidences, one is Stellenbosch University and also that the school in Cape Town, just show you how far we still have to go. Post-1994, we still have huge problems of racism across society, be it at schools, be it at universities, at workplaces, in shopping centres, etc. So it really does show the need for a bit of a firmer approach to it. We should not be tolerating such abuses taking place in society. There needs to be a bit of a book thrown at people who still want to cling on to racist beliefs 28 years into democracy. So we don't think we should take such incidences lightly. We should be condemning it. We should all be saying, how can we collectively as a society, be it as trade unions, as political parties, as employers, as universities, as schools, even the media, we all have a role to play in constantly exposing racist incidences and condemning them and holding those who have misbehaved to account. So we're pleased that Stellenbosch University is reacting. We think it needs to throw the book at these people. We cannot be tolerating such bad behavior. Not 28 years into democracy, not what we've seen at the University of the Free State and countless other places where people have been really abusive of other people. It really is not acceptable in this day and age.
Yeah, and obviously the university can only issue a strongly worded statement against racism, but it does say it has to first investigate and follow proper processes before deciding to actually expel Tiens du Toit, who's seen on camera urinating in Babalo's dorm room in particular. Do you agree with this approach?
Look, I mean, sure, all incidences need to be investigated, but the university needs to do it quickly. It's not acceptable to that student who is now seen as property being urinated on by another student to have to endure that kind of humiliation. And again, this is not the first time. We saw it happened with African women cleaners at the University of Free State a few years ago when a similar incident took place when students urinated in their food. So really, it needs to be dealt with swiftly and decisively. To take our time in dealing with it will be seen to be justice delayed, justice denied. It'll be really rubbing salt into the wounds of those who are victims of these incidences. And we can't take it lightly. If we are seen to be mollycoddling racists, it's going to send a wrong message to society, to people who have suffered from racism. It'll also be seen to be giving comfort to those who are racist. And again, we should be thinking, what are the values that parents of these children are inculcating in them? University students will have been born after we became a democracy in 1994. So there's also a need for those parents, the families of these children, to take responsibility and to accept they too need to play a role in eradicating this kind of scourge of racism, which sadly is still prevalent in South Africa.
You've made submissions on the Prevention of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill to Parliament. Take us through why you're supporting this bill.
I think what we've seen yesterday in Stellenbosch and in Cape Town is confirmation why we need to have a bill dealing with hate crimes and hate speech. The bill deals with both the issue of hate speech, which can be, we've seen many instances in the past, and in the past few years why it needs to be dealt with. And look, we do think, and the bill does provide that right balance between the constitutional right to freedom of speech, of thought, of political association, but also we accept that all constitutional rights have limitations and they come with responsibilities. So yes, you have the right to your views, to express those views, but they cannot be at the expense of other people's right to dignity, to be protected from discrimination. And it also needs to be borne in mind that South Africa has only recently emerged from many, many centuries of racism, of colonialism, of apartheid, and so forth. So there is a need to protect all citizens' rights and to err on the side of caution. But also it deals with the issue of hate crimes, which is much more serious, as we've seen in Rwanda during the genocide, as we saw in Germany during the Holocaust, in the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s. As we've seen in South Africa, hate crimes is a very painful subject. It needs to be dealt with decisively. So we think the bill is a useful step forward in that regard. We think it's going to help hold people who cannot behave to account where necessary, for people who misbehave in a citizen's to go to prison. But I think also critically it's going to help nudge us culturally in the right direction. We learn to respect each other's rights, to behave in the correct way in a democracy, and to begin to deal with our demons of racism. We still have a long way to go, but we think this legislation will begin to nudge us forward in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And that leads to my next question, right? We can have laws in place to actually have harsher penalties for those who are racist in particular or carry out hate crimes. But what about the broader issue of transformation, starting at schools into tertiary institution level, which we're seeing unfold right now? There clearly is more that needs to be done here.
But there's much more that needs to be done. It starts at the family level, how you raise your children, because no one is born a racist. It is us as parents who teach our kids wrong values. That's where we need to start. It goes to our churches, to our mosques, our synagogues, our temples. It goes to schools and universities and colleges. It goes to the workplaces. It goes to sports, to trade unions, to political parties. We all have got a role to play. All of us must play that role. We should not be tolerating it. And really, it is not a theoretical debate. We saw in Centurion a few years ago where there was a mobilization in the community to prevent the building of a mosque. That's wrong. It must be condemned. We've seen countless times where farm workers are abused by the employers. It has to be condemned. We've seen political parties indulge racism at times. We've seen AfriForum more recently going to court to demand the right to wave the old racist apartheid flag. So we need to deal with all these incidences. It's only when we're seen to take action will others begin to realize there's something wrong here that needs to be stopped. But again, we need to constantly teach young people, to teach everybody in society, that we cannot accept this kind of behavior, not 28 years into democracy. We should not take it lightly. Not in South Africa, where millions of people were forcibly removed from their homes, they lost their houses, they lost their properties, where thousands of people went to prison, many were killed, many were sent to Robben Island into exile. We shouldn't take our democracy for granted. As we saw in 1994, you remember how quickly the genocide unfolded in Rwanda. Within 100 days, a million people were butchered, hacked to death in a very quick space of time. And often that genocide took place because people engaged in hate speech on the radio stations and the media. So there is a need for all of us to take responsibility and to help build the South Africa that we all claim to support.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and your input. Appreciate it. Cosatu Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks.